Hey guys, can you hear me? Hello? Can anyone say anything on the chat? Dzień dobry. Okay. Oh, I can see the chat. Okay. So, today topic. Adam, can you hear me? Let's start with that. Okay, I can try to turn off the slow mode, but maybe tomorrow. Because I don't know how to do it. Okay, so today's stream is about blending. Guys, if you have any questions about that goes especially in particular to my Patreons and guys on my Discord, just ask me some questions on the Discord or in the chat, and I'm happy to answer. My camera is blurry as always, but I don't know what to do with it. So, hey. I will try to show you how I blend on a skin tone on this miniature. It's a miniature from, I think, Fair Miniatures. It was made by Peter Punk, I think. It's Arcane Wanderer or something like that, or Arcane Traveler. And I started painting it like a long time ago. I haven't finished yet, so I don't know. I will try to show you how I blend on the skin tones, because I think that they contain like the most interesting range of blending questions I may fit into this one stream. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, please ask. I'm happy to answer. It will actually make my work easier. So yeah, the paints I'm using are mostly Abteilung paints, and those are acrylics, not oil paints. They are heavy body paints, so this is pure white. For my base skin color, I like to go with premixed paints. This is P3 Midlund Flash. I like Midlund Flash from P3. In general, P3 paints are good, for me at least, because they are satin, and that makes them easier to blend for me. So I like the Midlund Flash is I think only paint I actually use from P3 because I like it the most. But I pick it for my skin tones for the satin formula actually. And then I'm using, for my shadows, I'm using dark violet from Abteilung. Any half transparent violet will be fine. I will maybe explain it like from the start to finish in a while. In Poland there is one shop, but I don't remember the name. I think that it's Mgła.pl, and they have P3. I think that as the only shop in Poland, I suppose. Yeah, when I found them, when I found out, I was doing my birthday shopping at their store, and when I found out that they have P3, I like the Midlund Flash, I bought like three bottles just to get some stash for the future. Okay, and now I need a little bit of iron oxide. will go for this iron oxide. Okay, that's good to know. Hey Kujo, good to see you here. Kujo did a wonderful video about me and my miniature, so you should go and see it. Like even right now. Okay, maybe this angle will be better. Okay, so we are working on this miniature today. Before we will start, I will show you the miniatures from my own range, Awesome Creations. So this is the one I started sketching on one of my workshops. This is Night Feather or Owl Knight or Mr. Owl. He goes by many names. And somewhere else I should have the other one. She looks like that. This is not the best kind of how to call it, a sketch, because I was doing actually a feedback for the sculptor on it. All of the green lines you can see. It was work in progress sculpt, and I did some feedback for the sculptor, and it got changed a little bit. Yeah, but she looks like that. I will be painting a box art for her in like next 2 weeks. Hopefully it will look nice. So yeah, I'm not selling them yet online, at least. In the mid-November there should be online store on online store, yeah, web store online. Yeah, I hope so that all of the cool kids have seen this video. This is very important piece of miniature knowledge, right? Must see right now, and subscribe, of course. Okay, so I'm using those paints. I will maybe explain why I'm using them, but I will put them in the right order first. And where is my yellow? Where will it go? Okay, here. So this is the order in which I will paint the skin tones. And here you have, I didn't share this miniature anywhere yet, but this is pretty well painted example of a skin tone for me. I think that the camera is a little bit like maybe blowing out the highlights right now on it. But for me, first of all, how do I blend? I blend by stippling, or one of my students actually came out with the name of dubbing. So I'm dubbing out the differences and the little, unevenness on the of the layers of paint. Basically stippling out the differences. So I start my painting with sketching. So I'm going with very broad, very general lines. Yeah, Tenere Yellow strongly recommend. I'm blending by, so like in general, I paint by sketching, and sketching is the core, is core for my painting. Hey Frog. Sketching is the core technique for my painting. I like to put all of the colors, all of the values on my all of the ideas on my miniature from the beginning. I'm using very broad strokes of paint for the start. You can see over here that over here you have basically like green line with some dots. They are meant to show that I want to paint shimmery scales visible from underneath the clothing, right? So in the future they will be there. I didn't I wanted to see how the idea will shape, how will it look. So over here we have more of the fantasy side. I wanted to hide it in the shadows. So the shimmer over here is more colorful, and over here I wanted the shimmer to go like in general the mermaid tail. I wanted to slightly show that it's going where the light is shining. I wanted to show that it's transitioning into the normal skin tone. So this is quite a complicated idea. I wanted to put it on the miniature right away to see if it's easy to understand for someone who is looking at the miniature and not only from my perspective. And I understand what I'm trying to paint because I came up with the idea, and the clue is to make it easy to understand for other people, right? So I like to try to put all of the ideas right away and see if they are basically readable for the like viewer's eye. So I start with the general sketch, and as you can see over here, there are only some colors, some very uneven layers of paint, and over here you have like smaller like swishes of paint visible over here. It's not very even. I think that on camera it looks more blended than it is in reality, but you can see like over here it's uneven, over here it's uneven, but in the areas where I worked a little bit more, you can see that it's getting a little bit blended out because the brush strokes are smaller. So I start with very broad brush strokes, which are meant to cover a lot of space on the miniature and just show the like more or less idea of what I want to paint, what colors I want to put where. And then the more I work, the more I blend, the smaller my dots become. And the end stage of my blending is just stippling out with very, very small dots of paint the differences and just painting out the unevenness of the layers of paint I'm left in the end. So over here on the face, I basically finished painting it, so it looks very blended. It looks very, very, no, almost. I would maybe change something, maybe add a little bit more dots, more dots of water on the side of her face, but I want to work on it later when more of the body will be done. Hey Matteo! Yeah, and so basically the blending on her face is done, and you can see that the painting is, I would say that for at least for my standards, quite perfect. It wouldn't get much better because I don't have the patience to work more on it. And this is the example of the smallest dots, and over here you have the example of the biggest dots. So this is my whole process of blending. I'm starting with sketching with stippling or dabbing, with very general and very big brush strokes, and then I'm stippling out the differences with my stippling dots being the smallest dots of paint possible in the end stages of my blending. Let me have a look on my Discord to see if anyone asked any questions. Okay, so how I'm dabbing. Let's say it like that. I like to basically transfer a gradient from my wet palette onto my miniature. So when I try to blend something out, I created this gradient with this basic skin tone being my mid-tone, and I usually start my painting from mid-tones, and then I add highlights and shadows. Sometimes shadow first and then highlights, it depends. It depends on what I'm painting. When I'm painting darker areas, I go for shadows first. When I'm trying to sketch skin tones, I go for highlights first. And I'm doing this, I'm creating this beautiful gradient on my wet palette. From base color, adding highlight color, I like to use Tenere Yellow for highlights, because like in general I like to paint positive and very colorful characters. So I go for yellowish highlights because for me positive atmosphere is placed in a sunny day. And when we are standing in the sunny, very strong sunlight, the sun is colored yellow, and like the sun rays are colored yellow because they are warm, and everything the sun is shining on basically gets a little bit of yellowish tint over it, right? Hi Skyvan. So I like to use colored highlights and colored shadows also to create the atmosphere, to show better my like the characters, the atmosphere, the vibe I'm going for with my painting. So that's why I'm adding to my base color the yellow, which is Tenere Yellow. And then for the shadows, I like to use in general violets, because first of all violet is a little bit colder color, and in theory shadows are cool or cold because the sun cannot warm the shadow basically because the sun is not placed in the shadows, right? So I like to use cold colors for shadows because it creates the atmosphere again, right? And when you know, basically shadows should have colder colors, but also violet is contrasting the yellow. I can show you the color wheel. Just give me a second. So here we have the color wheel. And again, I like to paint with strong contrasts. So first of all, first layer of contrast I can put on my miniature is the colors of the base colors over my miniature, right? So I can place blue blouse and red skirt. Hey Ivan, and I will have the initial contrast on my miniature. And then the another layer of contrast is the light and shadow contrast on my miniature. So you can see over here, we have violet here and we have yellow here. So warm highlight and colder shadow, and also yellow goes against violet on the color wheel. So I'm going for violet. Also violet is very good color for shadows because it's close to blue, but it's actually a little bit warmer, and it blends better with most of the colors. It's harder to blend what is the name? Blue with red, for example. But violet, which is much closer to red, goes like more natural in general. Same goes for browns, oranges, blues, of course, greens. The harder way to blend violet is to blend it with yellows, but you can blend on the color wheel. So first blend violet into browns and then into yellows, basically. Yes, so violet is very universal shadow color. I also very like violet in general, so I try to use it a lot. Okay, I was talking about the gradient. So I'm adding the violet to my gradient. And as I said, blending on the color wheel, I will add a little bit of this red oxide to this shadow color on my skin tone, because when I will add basic violet into my skin tone, the shadow that I create will be very cold. And if I was to paint, for example, like a negative sorcerer or a necromancer or someone that in general is supposed to look a little bit dead, I'm okay with cold shadows on my skin tones, because the vibe of this person is not that lively anyway. If I want someone to look healthy, happy, stuff like that, I would add a little bit of this red oxide, or maybe a little bit of red, depends whatever you want to do. You can just have in mind that adding a little bit of warmth is a good way to show that someone is alive. Because when we have shadows in our skin, right now we can see it more as a orange, but our skin doesn't go from highlight into shadows or from the base color into shadows immediately. Our skin has like all of those reds and fleshy tones inside of it. So first we have the base tone, then we go into usually browns, and then or a little bit reds, and then we go into shadows. That's why for a healthy person I like to use a little bit brown in between the base skin tone and my shadow color, which is violet in this case. And also this brown will make it easier to blend or stipple out the violet with my base skin tone. Because as I said before, blending on the color wheel. So skin tone is somewhere over here. My violet is over here, so adding a little bit of this redness from here will make it easier to blend out, basically. So I have this gradient. For the very, very dark and very cold areas, I would go with pure black. I usually don't go for the pure black almost at all for the skin tone. I would add some of the white to the lightest and most reflective areas of my skin tone, and actually white is more realistic for the shading of the skin, because skin is a little bit reflective, especially when it gets a little bit wet or a little bit oily. And you can see actually even now on my face, on my nose, there are like very strong reflections. So usually we would get those reflections on the nose, maybe on the cupid bow or in the tear duct, right? Yeah, so I can add a little bit of this white into this gradient. And I have this beautiful gradient. I have my miniature. And I can show you how I'm working with my layers, with my blending. There is also a very popular technique of blending which is called glazing, and this is not for me. Basically, I will mention it later, but this is not for me. I don't have the patience. I don't have the skill set to be able to put like this perfect little thin line of paint and wait for it to dry up. It's not for me. If you like to work quick, you can try this method of dabbing out. How do I get bright skin highlights without it looking desaturated? I actually think that using very bright highlights is easiest. I like to go for white in the middle of my highlights. I use a lot of yellow in the highlighted area, and I actually think that the desaturated part comes if you won't have like this brownish reds in the midtones. Yeah, exactly, keep the mid-tone. So if you feel that something gets desaturated, you can add a little bit of this blue into the mid-tone, not blue, red oxide into the mid-tone, or a little bit red, anything that is basically saturated. Yeah. And if you want strong highlight, it should be actually desaturated, because white is desaturated, right? Just keep in mind the mid-tone. So I have the gradient done. There should be a little bit more of this brown over here. And now I will try to transfer this gradient onto my miniature, and you can see already that I basically did it with the hair, for example. The hair is not perfectly blended. Again, it looks better on the camera, in my opinion, than in the real life. Let me try to refocus on it. Okay. It's not perfectly blended. Right over here you can see that there is like this line of shadow and the midtone, but you know, it's not important in my opinion, because some texture usually is alright. And with your blending, you don't have to blend everything perfectly. You should blend and, you know, put the time into your miniature as much as it needed. So for example, if you want to win a competition, try to blend more, but if you want to do a practice piece, then don't focus on blending, just focus on putting the right colors, the right contrast into your miniature. Just try to show the idea and don't over focus on blending at all. Okay, so I'm starting I will maybe show a bit of sketching. So I will just go like this, just dab 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 on the miniature, putting the values or the chroma or whatever. I never know what is the right name on the sculpt. While it's drying, because it's a little bit too wet, I will maybe explain one more important thing with the blending, which is consistency of your paint. So how to control it? I like to control it by painting the black line on my skin. It's kinda wet. I think that in general I will your painting will look different depending on the time of the year, stuff like that. And right now at my apartment it's colder, so everything dries up slower also. So my painting will be a bit different than like a month ago when it was warmer. Maybe this one will dry up faster. So I like to check my consistency of my paint by having this black line and basically drawing the lines of my paint over this black line. When the paint sits over the texture of your skin, it's okay. This is the good consistency of paint for me. If the paint goes inside crevices of your skin, like it did over here, I don't know, can I zoom it? I can zoom it. Okay, so like it did over here, those little lines, it's too thin. So like with too thin paints, you can go two ways with it. You can either try to make the paint thicker, so add more paint. Yeah, there is a cat going over here, so he may try to make some discord. With the consistency of the paint, if it's too thin, you can go two ways. You can either try to add more paint into the mix and make it thicker this way, or you can dry out your paint, like the moisture on your brush, and this way control more the consistency of the paint you have on your brush. What is the good consistency? The good consistency for me is when the pigment you are placing on the miniature, the pigment is staying in the place where you put it. That's why I like when the paint stays over the texture of my skin, because basically I put it there, it stays there, it's okay, right? If the paint is flowing somewhere, so it goes into the texture of my skin, then it's too thin. I don't like it because it runs its own ways. So either drying out the paint from your or the wetness from your brush, or making the mix thicker and making this way it makes the paint, the pigment stay in place. So the nice consistency. How do I water out my? Thank you guys for follows. How do I thin my paints? I basically don't thin them almost at all. How I like to okay, maybe this will be better right now. How do I go around with my painting? I like to wet my brush like this. I like to dry it out like this. Then I usually paint it out a little bit. You can use some paper, stuff like that, to make it dry out faster. And I think that I will go with this way because it's more humid right now in my place. I usually just dry it out somewhere, or I actually like to paint like this, and I like to dry out my brush on my knee. So I have my painting pens, and the knee is always colorful. So I like to dab the brush in the water. I paint it out a little bit somewhere. It may be some kind of paper, whatever. So some of the wetness stays on the brush, and you can see that when you are doing a streak, you can see that there is some wetness, but it's not just basically water falling from your brush. And then only with this wetness on my brush, I go into the paint, and I go like that. Then I go back. Notice that, be careful that to not ever have any kind of water over here on your brush, because it will float down and then it will thin out your paint and it will ruin everything. Okay, I dip my brush into the water, I dry it out, then I dip it into the paint, then I'm painting it out somewhere on my finger, anywhere. And then I try it out. How does it work? See? It's staying over the texture of my hand. And it's not running into the crevices like it did with the black paint. So this is good texture, for good consistency for me. As you can see, it's half transparent. I like to go with half transparent layers of paint, and basically just, if I want to build the coverage, I will go a few times over the same place. Sometimes I have to wait until it will dry out a little bit, but usually, because I don't have a lot of moisture in my brush, usually it dries instantly, and that allows me to work very, very fast. So this is, so you can see like why does it work for me, and why glazing doesn't work for me. Glazing is slow. Glazing requires longer time of the layer of paint to dry out, because the layers are more thinned out. They have more water or medium inside of them. And with something like that, I'm just going like done, right? I'm just doing a lot of dots, a lot of lines. I build them up, and I can, if I need something to dry out, I can just turn the miniature around and work on the area I sketched before, and it makes it easier for me. I'm not sure if it's like good for people with maybe ADHD or something. I just don't have the patience personally. So I find this way more helpful for me. I sometimes use glazing, usually to add a little bit of saturation, a little bit of color into my skin tones, for example, or just saturate or use a filter when something is very well blended already. I sometimes glaze a little bit to add some color, but in general I try to not use glazing at all. So this technique is basic for me. And here you can see how it works during the painting. The cat came here. Yeah, if I would hate myself, I would glaze everything. Yeah, so the painting, I go dip, dry out, add some paint into my brush, paint it out a little bit. If you are not experienced, paint it over the black line, and go with when I start my blending, like sketching, which is the first step of my blending actually. I like to go with a bit longer lines, longer brush strokes, and sometimes I will just even, use the pure layer of paint, like not layer, pure paint unwatered. Here, okay, we have the cut. Sometimes I will, even if I want to build a coverage and I just started painting, I will use pure paint without any watering out. It depends on what I want to do. So I painted the base skin tone over here, which is the area that the light hits the most. And I can go a little bit darker right now and start adding the shadowed area a little bit lower. And I'm not trying to be very particular, very very perfect right now, because it's sketching. I can change stuff later. Because I'm spending very little time on the steps right now. So I'm just going very fast, adding the values, shadows, stuff like that, and creating like the initial effect of the blending I will get later, basically. And see, I added this shadow over here. I feel that it's a little bit too dark. So right now I will go with a little bit lighter element of this gradient. I will again paint it out a little bit, and I will go in the middle over here to paint it over, to paint the difference between the darker color and the lighter color, and build the coverage a little bit. And I'm not using any kind of wet blending, stuff like that, but because I'm over painting the differences, sourcing the colors of paint from my wet palette, I'm receiving or I'm getting the initial blends right away. And it's fast, it's very quick. It's sketching, it's not perfect, but because I'm putting all of the values, all of the colors right away, the end effect is very feasible and visible right away in very early stages of my painting. And I consider it as very, very good morale boost. And also this prevents you from making a lot of mistakes during your painting. I recommend this approach in particular for people who want to learn how to paint. Because if you sketch your ideas, you can very quickly catch your mistakes and work on them, change them, remove them. And over here maybe I will demonstrate better my blending approach. I will just paint a darker shadow and then keep the bright line of the basic skin tone over here. Let it dry a little bit. Meanwhile, I will paint something around just to not lose the time. Okay guys, do you have any questions? If you have, that would really make my work easier, because I would know about what exactly should I talk. No questions, okay. So with this kind of painting, you can see why I have almost always violet in my works. It's very hard to avoid putting violet into my painting because I just find it very, very universal. Oh, and also using colored shadows will make your work in general more saturated. Don't try to use black for shadows, especially in particular in your skin tones, because black desaturates everything. So if you will shade your skin tone with black, you will basically create a dead person in the end. Thank you. It's a very nice comment. Okay, so I hope that it dried out a little bit. If it didn't dry, it will make the blending easier, of course, because we will have this effect of slight wet blending. About the wet palette, okay, I will maybe talk about the palette in the end of the stream. And I know I want to stream like during the weekend as well, so I will maybe talk more about the wet palettes also like later in the weekend, maybe tomorrow or on Saturday. Yeah, so I have this line, this very beautiful unblended line. So I can say, like, I can clearly see that this color over here is the color over here on my wet palette. It's a little bit unblended, but I actually don't think that the wet palette has to be not unblended, but it's a little bit blurred out. But I don't think that the wet palette needs to be in focus because we are talking about the general ideas, right? So I will make this blend a little bit stronger. I will add a little bit more brown in the middle, so I will have a nicer gradient. And I will, because I want to blend this color with this color, I will go into the color right in the middle and I will just overpaint the difference between those two colors. And because I already with my dabs of the brush from the cleaning out of my brush with dabs of this little brush water, I already cleaned out my paints on my wet palette. So this is the only way I'm getting water on my wet palette. I don't add more. Okay, so I go focus. Sorry guys, technical interruption. So I go with the color in the middle. I added a little bit more paint because it got too thinned out, and I'm just overpainting the middle area. And I went from two very clear differentiations of the color on on my surface, and right now it's already getting blended out because I added I removed the difference actually in between them. I removed the strongest border, let's call it like that. And I will go first of all even lighter, and I will overpaint this area over here. I can see that it's too light, so I go right back to my wet palette and I overpaint it slightly more. The direction of your brush strokes matters, because when you want to blend, like maybe not blend, if you want to paint with the lighter paint over the darker paint, it's good to start on the darker area and end on the lighter area, because you move your pigment with the brush. The area where you put your brush has the least pigment, because you drag out the pigment in this area, and the point where you break the contact of your brush with the miniature, the most pigment stays there. So if you will try to blend in the opposite direction, so from light to dark, you will end up with very streaky effect, because you will get like those light particles stranded on the darker area. So always have in mind the direction of your brush and be mindful of it. I usually don't notice it when I start my painting, because it doesn't matter basically for me. I'm not trying to build the blends when I start sketching, but when I go into blending, I become more mindful about my direction of my brush strokes. And with the darker color, I would go like this, from lighter to darker. And this way you will also build more coverage of the layer of paint. With those points of basically breaking contact with your brush. So when I start blending, I'm doing longer lines. And when I'm more in more advanced stages of blending, I'm doing more of the dots. But the dots are still a little bit offline, because I'm actually doing a dot where I'm doing like this. I'm not doing like a dot, like the pure dot. I'm doing the dot, but I'm dragging a little bit the pigment in one of the directions. So I'm always like doing very slight line, but in the later stages of my blending, the line is very, very short. And because I'm using more opaque layers of paint, sometimes the layers will become uneven again, so I will just go back into the gradient on my wet palette, and I will try to find like this exact color I need to fill like the one gap somewhere on the miniature, and I will try to adjust it, and then I will use the dot to build the coverage of the color where it's uneven. I can see over here I did a like random dot over here. So to cover it up, I will just take this base color and I will do some dots. And because I'm doing the dots, the pigment is staying in one place, so it's disappearing very quickly. If I try to like paint it like that, it would take more time, because you can see that the paint drags, and like the pigment is uneven on the surface because I dragged it over, and over here I'm just leaving it in one space, and it's building the coverage. And I have again the big difference between over here and here, so I will try to find like the mid color and try to overpaint it. and the difference starts to disappear. Also, the coverage of the paint is important. Where the areas where the coverage is 100% over your primer, they will look blended and the most tidy, I would say. So, for example, over here where I have the black stick coming from under the violet, it looks very messy, I would say. So just building the coverage will make it look much better. I'm not sure if this elbow should be that dark, but I will go with it. Yeah, it kind of does. This color sourcing on your palette may seem like it's very problematic and very complicated, especially for people who don't like to mix the color that much. But in reality, after you will get used to it and you will get the practice and you will train your muscle memory, basically, you will be able to work very fast with it. And also this will improve your color matching skills in general, or blending skills, because you will become like more aware of paints, of their consistencies, and in general it will basically improve your knowledge about this tool that is actually paint. And again, I have very big difference over here, and actually with a spot of black visible from underneath. So I will go in like middle color, I think. And this is for me, those are very educated guesses, because I have a lot of experience and I usually know, right now I'm almost certain that the spots I'm picking will work out. For less experienced people, usually the spots won't work out, and you will have to try to find out, try to work your way around it. I'm saying it not to flex on you guys that I'm so experienced, stuff like that. But during my workshops, I find that some people get discouraged when they are not as fast as I am. But this is just the thing. The more I have a lot of experience with it, so I'm quick, and people that don't have the experience will be a little bit slower, but just for some time, until they will actually build the experience and the muscle memory again. And again, and for me, blending it's actually about painting out the unevenness of the paint. Hey, Kukeo. For me, blending is actually not about like creating this very smooth surfaces, but I'm just trying to identify the spots of uneven paint, and I'm just trying to overpaint them to make it I don't know how to call it, just to make them look even and at peace with all of the different colors all around. Or harmonious. This is the word I was looking for. So first of all, painting out the differences between the colors of the paint, but also building the opaqueness of the paint to not let the, for example, primer stick from underneath my base tones, or to build the coverage of the color that is actually placed somewhere on the on the gradient. Yeah. And I did some initial blending with my base tone going into the shadows. And now I will go into my highlight, because I didn't paint any highlight over here. And for the highlight I will go with mostly shorter dots of paint, because it's the surface is already blended a little bit, so I don't have to, you know, do the broad brush strokes. I can just go and dot the highlight on to create to build up the coverage of the highlight area. For his knuckles, I won't use very strong shadow. He has very bony hands, so some shadow is welcomed over here, but usually our knuckles, actually they are not very shadowed. We know that there's a strong shadow because when we bend our hand, we know that there is those crevices and those dips or dimples, I don't know how to call it, but we know that this is high, this is low, this is high, this is low, especially when we compare it to the usually flat hand, right? But in reality, it doesn't get that much shaded, as you can see over here. We can mostly see some shadows visible somewhere from one direction, but they are more in the color of base tone, and actually you can see more of the highlight. So I will focus on not adding that much shadow into the knuckles. I will just add stronger highlights on top of them. I usually sketch everything. So I usually go with something like that over here. This is most of my miniature actually on the start, and I usually sketch most of the miniature like this, and then I go into painting the face, especially if it's bust. If I would paint something that is focused on skin tones in general, or maybe non-metallic metal / reflective surfaces, I would maybe blend out more of the armor, for example. But for bust I usually sketch something like that, then I go into the face, blending it out almost, I don't know, like to 95% maybe, because this is very important area for me, so I focus on it as the first step. And I also usually face makes everything work for me in bust. Because bust is a portrait, and in portraits usually the face is most important, right? So I like to work out the face. For example, I painted this. Usually when I paint bust, I don't blend it that much, but I really wanted to work out her expression, because I really wanted her to look in very particular way, and I needed to make it work basically. So the face is creating the tone for the rest of the miniature, so I needed to have the expression right. Yeah, thank you. I was very happy with this face, but again, this sculpt is very good, but it wasn't that easy to actually create those I know little points of interest, because, you know, in general, in theory she's just looking sideways, right? But I wanted to add a little bit of wrinkles over here, and like this little darkness over on her brow, and I needed to explore this face basically to make it work in the way I wanted it to work. So I put more work on her over there. But usually I don't paint the face that much. I usually finish it in later stages of painting. Over here you can see that I focused more on the bird, and the face basically is left very neutral and not finished that much. So I usually sketch everything. You can see that it's over here, like the bag is not even painted, right? So I sketch the general idea, and then I go to the element that interests me the most, and then I paint it like maybe to 80% of finish, and then I jump around the miniature painting, elevating everything else, and then I go back into some elements and paint them almost to the finish. Yeah, I really hope to, you know, pull off the painting of that one, but I wanted to paint it for Scale Model Challenge actually this year, but I decided to take my time and make it really good. So I will be finishing her in like next year, basically. Yeah. So coming back to the blending, to create the highlights, because also like this yellow is closer to the color of the base skin tone, so just building very opaque layers of paint will be less troublesome in general, because those two colors are close to each other. So I'm just using smaller lines of smaller brush strokes and just trying to dot on the highlight. And in general, when I'm painting the highlight, I like to stipple it on or dab it on. I shouldn't be tilting this miniature that much to not create like not correct highlights on the hand. And then I will go into the white and dab on even stronger highlights just on the points of knuckles. For the bottom part of his hand, I will go more into the shadows. And overpaint it, blending out some of the layers by having this darker violet and starting on the lighter area and dragging it into the designated darker area. So I'm just licking the surface. Thank you for the sub. So I'm basically licking the surface of the miniature with this brush, having half transparent layers of paint. So it works like this. Letting it dry a little bit. And actually after it will dry out, the layer of paint will change a little bit. Usually it becomes more transparent. And then again, another layer, letting it dry out. So you can see I'm not adding any water almost at all to my mixes, and just the little bit amount of water I'm putting into my brush makes the paint already half transparent, right? So this is the level of coverage I'm comfortable with, and I don't need so you know, this is, you can call it a little bit of glazing as well, but I'm just using half transparent layers of paint instead of like 10% transparent layers of paint. This is basically quicker for me and less salt destroying. And see, like I'm not sure how long I'm painting already, but you can see the initial blends visible, present. You can pick the areas you want to work more on, and decide, for example, to blend out the face more, or in general the skin tones, because they are important for you, for example, or you just want to focus on front of the miniature, and you don't have to blend out everything on the miniature, because blending, it's nice to be able to blend, but sometimes having the miniature painted and finished is more important than perfect blends all around. Hey, Bloodwork. Some areas that I shadowed, I would like to be a little bit lighter, so I'm doing it with this area over here. I'm picking a little bit lighter tone, so basically the base skin tone, and I'm just dragging the pigment from the darker area into the lighter side, and I'm instantly painting with the blend. Over here I think that it could be lighter, so I will go into the lighter area of my gradient, and I will painting like that, starting on the base tone and dragging it into the highlight. And it starts looking nice, first of all because I started blending out everything, but also because I built the coverage of base tones, base colors. Over here it looks a little bit messy because the coverage is not that good, and also the gradient is not that perfect. But when we will build more the layer of paint, it will be much more tidy. I'm adding some stronger highlights right now in the over his muscles to make the skin look more luminous. I'm also, the yellow in the highlights is strong, and his skin would look very yellow, even too yellow, unrealistically yellow, if I didn't add the same yellow in every other surface on the miniature. So with the colored highlights and colored shadows, it works when you are consistent and when you are adding it consistently all over your miniature in every surface. If you will add the colored highlights or lights only on some surface, those surfaces will look very out of place, and for example, the skin would look very yellow if it was only on the skin. For his veins, we know that the human flesh has those undertones, so usually people like to paint blue in the veins, stuff like that, but in reality, when we look at someone from very far away, the undertones are not that visible, and our miniatures are like people that we would look at if they were standing like on the opposite end of the room, sometimes even further away. So try to not add those undertones in the first place. Don't focus on them in the first place. Try to focus more on the highlights and on the shadows, and then add the undertones only on the key elements. So for example, blue undertones in the veins would be important if you were painting, for example, a dead necromancer, right? That would have those veins very visible and making him look kinda ill or something like that. The blue undertone under the eye would be important in more like, I don't know, ill character, something like stuff like that. If you want to create someone more healthy, try to focus on the highlights and shadows in his body in the first place, and then add some of the undertones, but mostly in the features that you are actually trying to show off and underline. I actually don't know if there is the background music, because I can see that the background music is playing, but I cannot hear anything from the stream on my computer. I will know how it works after I will be done with it, and I will play it back. So sorry guys if there is no chill background music this time. I will try to fix it for the next time. So for the blending, maybe I will revisit this area because it dried out, and this doesn't look blended because it's very uneven, so I will go back and try to build the coverage of the tones over here and over here. Again, this I'm using a lighter color, this one, so I'm starting on the darker area, and I'm stippling in the direction of the... I'm starting on the darker area and stippling in the direction of the lighter area. Even for the shorter brush strokes, I'm aware of the direction. Now I'm going to the darker color, so I think that I will go with the opposite. Now I'm going darker. I start on the lighter and I drag it down. And when I turn it a little bit, this area over here is a little bit messy. So I will try to find the color in the middle and paint it out. Here is his elbow, and I think that I could add a little bit of shadow over here. To make it more dramatic and to show more of his anatomy. Because again, like painting, like shadowing and I don't know how to call it, shadowing, underlining, all of those features of anatomy on his hand will make his physics more dramatic, right? If you will keep them more toned out or toned, more even, he will look more chill in general. So if you want maybe a little bit of a bodybuilder or a very old person, try to shade everything and highlight everything. And if you want someone looking more natural and neutral, then focus maybe only on highlights. That goes for painting old persons in general. So if you just think who you want to paint and adjust the level of your engagement into shading everything. Because if you want to paint a healthy, nice, happy grandma, then don't shade everything and don't shade every wrinkle on her face, and don't add all of those blue and green undertones in her face, because if you do that, she starts looking like she's disintegrating, like she's almost dying. And if you want to paint a happy grandma, then just highlight some of the wrinkles and don't add all of the very realistic undertones in her face. Just make her look healthy in general. So I can see guys, I painted like I tried to blend out or build the opacity of the layers over here, and I accidentally painted a line over here. This is not bad. You can just revisit, go for the lighter color and just paint it out. Don't be afraid to like make mistakes. Yeah, I like my grandmas happy and healthy, so I try to focus more on the highlights when I paint them. Yeah, don't when you blend something or when you paint something and you think that you are done with it, don't be demotivated if you accidentally dip it in paint or make a random line. Because you know you were there once, you can go there again and make it perfect. Yeah, that's why I like sketching, because I can just overpaint anything. I would be sad if I would paint like a black line over this face over here. I would be sad then. But if I'm not at the perfect blend stage of painting, then never mind. I think that he could have some highlight over here. I don't know, like, would I get a highlight in this area? I think that I would, because this bun over here is slightly reflective over here. So I will maybe highlight it slightly. I'm going with white to build the coverage of the highlight. But I will go a little bit darker and repeat it with more of the yellow color later. Yeah, I think that was a good direction. I can congratulate myself with wise decisions with my highlighting process. And now I will go with the lighter highlight and add the lines of highlight over some of the veins, because I actually like them and would like them to be more visible. And also they are sculpted very strongly, so I can go with the flow and make them more interesting. I will also add a little bit of highlight over here. I went with too strong white and it started looking unnatural, so I will go with a darker color and overpaint it slightly. Okay, Loki. Loki wants a hug. Say hello. No, I have a lot of fur on my face. It's not very visible on the camera, but I've painted like the bottom of the of his vein over here with too strong base color, so I can paint a little bit of shadow over there to make it more realistic. Okay, this is too strong. Loki! Let's see if I can paint like that. Yeah, this one is not allowed either, but you know, he doesn't care about my opinion, sadly. Yeah. When I actually adopted him like last year, but I found him with 2 of his siblings, and the happy feet were very strong when they were very little. Like they were colorful happy feet all over my flat, and also my keyboard and computer in general. Also the monitor or the screen from my PC, walls, my clothing, everything. Okay, I was supposed to overpaint this vein over here, I forgot. And even with those lines I'm painting right now, I'm sketching, but because I'm using smaller dots of paint, it's not that dramatic and it will be actually easy to blend out. So I started with two dark colors, so right now I will go with just overpainting it with something lighter. And it will become more neutral. And I think that this shadow over here is too round in a way, and also the black paint is sticking from underneath over here. So to blend out I need to build the opacity of the paint to make it more tidy, and also I need to adjust the shape of the shades of the shadows. So I will try to work on it right now. See, it's like immediately visible difference. The paint needs to dry, so I will go to different area and I will try to maybe build maybe like fix the elbow. So yeah, this is my process of blending. I'm just revisiting the areas right now, and I'm just trying to paint those little details and those little elements using smaller brush strokes basically, and that makes it blended out, and also building the opacity of the layers of paint. Yes, I will use the same yellow and violet. Sometimes for some colors, for example like this shirt, I'm not sure if I will leave it in this color. I think that I may, we will see. But for something very bright, I would use, for example, white mixed with yellow to desaturate the yellow a little bit, because yellow may overwhelm the very bright areas or very desaturated areas. So for the skin, I would use pure yellow for highlights. For lighter colors or more desaturated colors, I may desaturate the yellow, but I always make sure that the yellow is present at some point in all of the highlights. Or in general, any color of the highlight would be present in all of the highlights all over the miniature. Same goes with shadows. And if you will forget, I don't know, maybe when I will be painting something else, I will try to omit the highlight in like very dramatic way, the color of the highlight in very dramatic way, and maybe it will be more, I don't know, visible for you guys, but that's for a future painting. On my workshops, usually depend, like maybe not depend, but my workshops are about guiding people through their painting. So I like to encourage them to use the sketching method, but I don't force them to. And if they decide to use the sketching technique and they actually forget to paint, to use the highlights, or only, for example, they use shadows consistently over the miniature, and they have the one color of the shadows present, but they will forget to use the same color of highlight somewhere. I sometimes have the problem of pinpointing the source of the problems in their painting, right? And then I have to actually sit down and think about it to realize what exactly is off-putting in the process. So sometimes it's not very obvious. Sometimes it's very subtle and very hidden. But I know this is like this one thing that makes your brain noticing some kind of problem in the painting. And sometimes when you have like everything painted logically and everything is very harmonious, but you have this one thing sticking out from the rest, then the viewer's brain will basically focus only on this one negative thing and won't notice all of the blends, all of the nice, let's call it freehand stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I always encourage people to focus first on the general ideas and the general painting, and then focus on blending, right? And I will maybe talk a little bit more about the workshops, because actually people have some... one second. I usually don't do the gradient for all of the elements. In the initial... when I start painting, I usually place all of my colors around the wet palette, all of the colors I want to use in the painting, but I build the gradient only for the skin tones or only for the metals, for example, or non-metallic metal, or for any other element that would be most important in my painting. So I usually build the gradient only for the one most relevant element, and I just do like those spot blendings, something like that, around the colors, around the palette. Because if I will do this little spot over here, it's basically a miniature gradient. It's just not that big. So I do only one gradient and then I'm just doing those messy spots all around the wet palette. But if you are less experienced, or if you like to have this nice gradients, you can build the gradient for all of the elements in your painting. And also, when I'm at the later stages of my painting, when I'm trying to blend out something perfectly, I know that I will be focusing on, for example, one area of metal for next 5 hours, for example. So I will build the gradient on my fresh wet palette from the metals, right? Because I know that I will be focusing on the metals and I will need to source a lot of different shades of metal colors. So I'm not building the gradient for the skin tones then, but I'm building the gradients for the metals or for a cloak, yeah, or for something. So yeah, you can see over here, like, it's blended pretty nicely. I think that the most off-putting area right now is over here. So when I try to blend out, I'm trying to focus on like the areas that makes the thing looks unblended. So for me, it's over here, and I think that is just too dark. So I will go for my base skin tone. I will paint it out a little bit. So the consistency is again like that. You can see that it's very, very transparent. And I will just do those lines over here, because this area, this anatomical sculpted area, is quite long. And yeah, I think that it looks better like that. The area over here is unblended, so I will go into a little bit darker color. Better. And right now I think that the shadow over here got too strong, the shadow over here, so I will go into a lighter color, and again I will drag the lighter skin tone a little bit lower. And right now I think that the issue is over here again, because this area became unevenly dark after I highlighted everything else. So I will go with the highlights like that. And I think that this shadow over here makes it not right, because it's too dark and too round. So I will try to neutralize it in a way. And now it's okay. Or at least I think so. And to tidy it up more, I will leave alone this area over here, and I will go into this shadowed area over here. Sometimes I'm adding more paints into the blend, because this is very thin layer of paint, and it's, first of all, it's I run out of paint pretty quickly, and also it dries out a little bit. This is the layer of paint I will be painting with. You can see, half transparent, and I will try to paint it over here. And I will use very violet shade in the crevice of the hand. I painted very strong line over here and it's unblended, so I will go into the mid-tone or maybe a lighter mid-tone, and I will just try to overpaint it and build the coverage of the paint again, because the black is sticking from underneath the layer of paint actually. And it becomes, the skin looks more lively, more finished, just because first of all I'm not only focusing on blending out the areas, but I'm building the opacity of the paint, so it looks, for example, this area is more brown, right? And then I'm blending together the different areas. And I will go around the miniature and basically try to find those imperfections and the areas that make me not like this surface of paint. And like with those shadows over here, actually the not blended area wasn't the issue. It wasn't. It didn't make the surface look not right, but the proportions of the shadows were the stuff were actually making this area look worse. So you don't always focus on blending something out. You can leave some areas unblended, but try to understand the highlights, the shadows. Try to evaluate if something looks right, if something looks logical. If it's not too light, if it's not too dark, because actually the the lack of logic in your painting will make your painting look worse than unblended areas. See, and I knew where to aim because I have a lot of experience. So basically the color I picked to blend out over here is very good color. If I wouldn't find the right color right away, I would just overpaint the stuff that I painted, because, you know, if I won't place the right color right away, I can see it immediately because it dries out very fast. And usually I'm starting with a dot somewhere. I'm waiting a little bit to dry it, for it to dry out, and then I know if this dot is working or it's not working. This is very strategic for like the nicer blends. For example, on this face over here, if I didn't have, like, if I had a darker spot somewhere, I would be very careful with picking out the shade from the gradient, and I would place a very small dot inside of this unblended dot to see if it's working out, to not overpaint it in a bigger area all around the unblended area, to not make it worse, basically. Hey zombies. Yeah. And so this is my process for blending stuff in my dabbing technique, let's call it like that. Let me see Discord. No questions on Discord. No. So this is. Do you have any questions for this this technique or this way of blending? Was it understandable for you guys? I will be like Dora the Explorer, waiting for like 10 seconds for answers, and then I will proceed. Hey Kukia, bye bye. Okay, cool. So I will move into glazing. Hey, thank you. Thank you for the ride. Hey guys. So I will be talking about glazing right now. I explained before my way of blending, which is actually not glazing but stippling / dabbing. And right now I'm moving into how I use glazes in my blending. So as I mentioned before, I hate glazing. It's not for me. I don't have the patience. Give me a second. It depends what texture actually. If it was something very intense, very graphic, for example, a coarse wool on the how's it called, cloak, or maybe very old leather, I would take much lighter color and I would paint the texture over it, and then actually I would use the glaze to saturate the texture I've painted. If it's lighter texture, so for example, if you have veins on the hand, I would incorporate it while highlighting and shading. So it really depends on what I'm painting. Why purple? First of all, because I just like to use purple shades or violet shadows, but also skin has a lot of blues in it. Like, not every skin tone. Some of the skin tones have actually more green, but because we have blue veins, right? Like, you can see that I have blue veins visible in my skin. Then actually bluish colors work well for shading skin. And because blue is very cold color, actually going a little bit in the warmer area.
I didn't just splattered paint, I was my paint.
Okay, I forgot about that. Thank you, Skyman. And because blue may be too intense for your skin tone, because blue will make the skin tone look very dead, you can step closer to the warm colors and use violet or purple. So you have over here we have, this is very nice set of paints basically from AK. I like it because I have the color wheel over here. See, we have the skin tone is somewhere over here, or over here actually, and the blues are very far away, so having something first of all closer on the color wheel makes it easier to blend, but also it's warmer, so it's closer to the basic color, so it's more natural, and also it's closer to the colors in our bodies basically. Okay, so and for the textures, yeah, I think that for me it's very organic actually. It depends on what I want to paint, and for example, I find that I really struggle with painting leather, so when I paint leather I just try to paint the texture in very, very contrasted way, so I just take very light paint, so it may be Tenere yellow or it may be white, and I just paint the texture and then glaze over it to saturate it. And some textures just are very organic for me. For example, the hair texture also I paint when I paint my highlights and shadows. So yeah, it really depends on what you want to paint. Glazing in my approach to painting. I hate glazing. I try to avoid it as much as I have. And for example, when I have to paint leather, I cannot omit it, because sometimes when you paint some, when you want to shadow some colors, you have to use a lot of white to build the, like in general, if you want to highlight something, you need to use a lot of bright colors. Usually it's white or some kind of white mixes. So for example, Tenere Yellow is white with yellow. So I need to use very bright color to highlight something. Sometimes the color that I want to highlight doesn't work well with white paint or white pigment. And the white pigment makes it look very desaturated. So, for example, if I want to paint red and I add bright yellow or white, I get pink, which is a color I didn't want to achieve. I wanted red. So I have to go back with the base skin color, base color, not skin color. Base color I was trying to highlight, and I have to glaze with this color over my highlight to make it actually look red, right? Colors that work this way, also brown works this way. So I'm painting the texture of leather, and then if I want it to be actually brown, I glaze with the brown over it. So it's brown and not the color of the skin, for example, because skin color is brown color mixed with white. Yeah. So I'm using I use glazing in very like specific situations for me. I use it usually when I have to saturate the color, the surface I'm painting. And that goes for stuff like painting leather, sometimes painting textures on the cloaks. For example, if I wanted to paint a textured cloak, I'm not sure if I have it somewhere. I don't think that I have the example, but if I was to paint a wool, for example, I would paint little dots of white on the, for example, purple base tone. And then after having this texture painted, dotted on, I would go with the purple over it to saturate it into the purple again. Yeah, so the first way of using glazes is the old school way. So you take the color, right? You thin it out with water. And you can use very, very thin glazes, which are almost like washes, I would say, and they don't have that much coverage into them. You can use thicker glazes. Usually when I'm glazing, I try to use thicker glazes. And with glazing, the control over the pigment, again, is very important. So when you have a lot of water, take it on your brush, paint it out again, so it's not, see, it's too thick because it's going into crevices on my skin, so I'm trying to paint it out, and after it gets painted out, right now, okay, it's staying a little bit into the crevices, but in general, you can see that when I drag it over, it's not very concentrated into the crevices, and you can see like this tint going over my skin. And this way, after you will, where is the nice area? Over here. When you will paint it over the surface, it will more or less stay in place and build a layer of glaze. And so in general, watering down, hey Ghost Raven. So in general, first of all, you have to water down your paint. Glazes work the best with the paints that are transparent or half transparent. Why so? They work the best this way because usually paints with strong coverage have very strong pigment mixed into them. White is a very good example of it. That's and sometimes especially when the white is very coarse, it stays visible as like those streaks or those dots in your layer of paint. So when you try to glaze, be aware of the more or less be aware of the consistency and the mix of paint you are using. Usually we don't know what is actually in the paints because not that many companies write it anywhere. There is not that much info about it. But you can sometimes work out if you have something gray, you know that there is a lot of white, for example, in it. So it may not glaze well. And my layer of paint dried out, so I can go again and build the coverage of these layers, build the color, build the saturation. It takes ages. I hate it personally. It's just too much for me. I like to use glazes, for example, for my skin tones. So I can go and make a nice blush in his skin right now. But for skin, this is very light, so it's not catching a lot. So I would have to go like 2 or 3 times. This consistency is actually good for the skin because this is very bright underpainting. So the very covering colors will appear very strongly if we will use stronger glaze. Yeah, I want to return to streaming. Like in general, I want to like do shorter streams, not like 3 hours because they were a little bit too much for me. But maybe an hour stream or hour and a half. We are actually going almost 2 hours already, so it's not that bad. But yeah, I just want to stream more often and maybe shorter. Yeah. Okay, so glazing. Again, I'm going again with the layer of paint. I'm just painting out the paint on my hand. And I will try to build stronger blush on this guy. And it becomes warmer and warmer. I personally prefer to work with half glazes. I like to call them like that. So when I have to saturate something, it's easier for me, and because I like to use thicker glazes, I don't like to play with those like 500 layers of thin glazes. It's too much for me. I hate it. So I like to take base color. If I have to, for example, paint a blush on the face, I like to take base skin color, take the violet, for example, or red or something, and I'm doing like this kind of dramatic blush color. It's thicker, it has more coverage because first of all, it's thicker than this previous thin glaze, but also it has white pigment in it. How do I know that it has white? Because when I mix red oxide with white, I will get my skin color. And white and red oxide are pure pigments, and the skin color is a mixed paint, right? See, it's getting closer and closer. So by mixing the base skin color, which has white in it, with my purple color, which is the color of my blush, I'm getting this like half glaze, which has a little bit more coverage. And I like to go over the surface. So I don't know, maybe a red nose. It's not very visible because it's very small, but but after it will dry out, it will be see, it's instantly more intense. And those half glazes are, if I have to saturate something, are very helpful for me, because first of all, the end effect is visible much faster, and I don't have the patience for thin glazes. And also because I have this building pigment, which is white, which is the pigment that builds the opacity in the base skin tone. Because I have this building pigment, this color is covering stronger, and also it's blending out a little bit the color I have underneath this glaze. So it's kind of a way to blend out stuff. It may work in some instances. So for example, if you have unblended cheekbones, you can use this half glaze to blend it out a little bit, or help you start blending out even out the surface. If I would like to make it stronger, I would just add this purple into the previous mix and overpaint a little bit stronger, a little bit smaller area. Yeah, so this is the way I'm using glazes. So it's all about control of the paint and the control over the pigment. If you will create the glaze paint, so you will thin out the paint a lot, and you will basically float the miniature with this glazing paint. You are washing, and this is a wash, not a perfect one, but this is the wash. And the difference between a wash and glazing is actually the amount of moisture you have on the brush, right? Because wash is uncontrolled and glaze is controlled. Yeah, I would be happy to come to Budapest again. It was it was great. Yeah, it was very nice to meet all the Hungarian painters. You have a very good community. Yes, I got the new Pina Bust, and I also, during the SMC, I got a Mama Bucho. Yeah, so I have a lot of nice Pina Busts right now. Oh, I can show you later my idea for the Pina Bust. So yeah, this is my blending. So first of all, blending with stippling, basically. And second of all, using the glazing only in some instances for me. If you are, and you know, every painter is different. Some people may prefer the traditional glazing. Some people may not find themselves that well with glazing, and they may have problems with it. I developed my my technique, let's call it like that. Because I was struggling with glazes, and I was trying to learn how to paint from the internet, and for example watching Kujo painting videos, right? And I didn't understand how it works exactly, because I didn't have the patience to actually thin out everything and be patient to let it dry. So I was trying to work it out, and I worked it in this way of stippling / dabbing, right? Yeah. So if you want to try out this method of blending, feel welcomed. I think that it's worth trying it out at least once, especially for sketching. But if you don't like it, then hey, Kolorowojny. If you don't like dabbing, then glazing may be for you, or you may develop even different way to blend something. Also, you can use underpainting and then using airbrush to blend out everything. So, you know, every method is good as long as you achieve the effect you wanted to achieve. Oh yeah, like loaded brush, guys, I tried it once on Pyrkon convention. It's like the biggest convention, fantasy convention in Poland, and Ben and Matt were doing like they were learning people, teaching people how to paint, and I tried the loaded brush then. It was the only place and time in my life where it worked, and it worked only when I was painting hearts on a wing of a demon. But when I wanted to paint later, like the same day, like after half an hour, when I wanted to actually shade something, it wasn't working for me anyway. So I was on that bus for like 20 minutes, then the bus left. Yeah, it looks nice, but it's very complicated, and I think that it really requires a lot of practice to make it work. Okay, guys, do you have any questions for the blending? Yeah, because I'm not sure if I have anything to add actually. Maybe aside that, always be aware of the paints you are using. So some transparent paints are sometimes easier, and some paints that have a lot of white pigments or all of the other pigments that have strong coverage may make things harder. Yeah. But it's very complicated topic and very broad one, especially with acrylics in figure/model painting. And I could talk about it for hours basically. Yeah. For the Pina bust, I can show you something I come up to yesterday, I think, because I got the Guardian from Spira Mirabilis, and I got the newest miniature, and they actually look like brothers. So I think that I could, you know, put them together, and even the composition looks nice because one guy is like trying to protect the rabbit, and the bunny, he's looking in the same direction that the orc with the tree is looking. So I'm thinking about trying to maybe make them work together and create like one composition with those two. But I actually don't know where I put them, so I cannot show it. Maybe on the next stream I could talk more about those ideas. Yeah, but it's very nice, and also like the casting is very interesting of this guy because he was casted in like two elements, two parts, and one part is this very long trunk with his hands, and you have to put them on his body, but they are casted very very tightly, so you have to basically snap them on, and they if you would install them like that, he can stand without any gluing, and I like it a lot. Yeah. Yes, so I think that I will stream like maybe tomorrow afternoon, like in the evening actually, around 9. And I'm not sure about what I would stream. I can show off I can show the stuff I bought during Freak Wars /Essence/SMC, because I have some interesting miniatures. If you would like to see that, or I can show and talk about the owl and Awesome Creations. Again, guys, go to Awesome Creations Instagram and subscribe, follow, stuff like that. This is my miniature brand I'm trying to make work. This is the owl. This is the owl with alternative head. I will be painting box art on this one, and this is the veil. So I have 2 busts and very nice stickers. Yeah. So yeah, I think everything for today. Thank you for all of the follows, for all of the subscribes. I want to start first of all streaming in general, but also be more consistent, and maybe do shorter streams, but more often than once a week. And yeah, I think that it's all for today. Yeah, the veil. It may be a little bit complicated, but also I forgot about it. I will be setting up the web store next month, and I will publish free I don't know, like instructional videos, how to paint them, how to tackle them. Especially for this one, it would be useful, I think, because the transparency is a little bit complicated to paint. Yeah, so you can follow my Instagram. It's orach with CZ on the end .art, like in the logo. You can get into my Discord. I hope that the invitation on the Twitch works. If it doesn't, I will make it work later. And I will publish on my social media, like the next time I will be streaming. I will let you know. And also on my Discord. I tend to be more active like recently over there. Yeah, guys, so thank you for coming to my stream. I hope that it was informational for you. Oh, I can show you a trick with my bust. I did it today, guys. See? Yeah, so because I really wanted to make the head turn around in every direction, because you know the owls can turn the head around. Yeah, so that was living in my head like rent-free for past month. Yeah, so thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for coming. See you on the next stream. Follow me. I know, like me. Subscribe to my channel. And see you next time. Yeah. Bye.